TWIG is something new that we are trying here on the stream. For those of you that have been around with us for a while, you know that Checkpoint likes to innovate. We like to change things up, like to try out new things to see how they go. Sometimes we have a whale in our face whenever we're trying to speak. And we always are trying new segment ideas, new stream days, new games, new plans, new everything to go here and there. This is our latest attempt at something new. We're going to try something new. We're going to see how it works today. Kind of going to be a soft launch. It's not going to be like a real deal of what we're doing, but it's going to be a little something, just a little taste of what we want to do. TWIG stands for The Week in Geek. The Week in Geek. So we are going to start talking about news, nerdy news. We're going to go through nerd topics, some of the things that are going on, some of the headlines that are happening in the world of nerds, geeks, and gamers. And we're going to talk about them, work our way through some of the highlights of the week, and we're going to go over things that you guys submit to us. So I'll talk more about that whenever we get to it. And then we'll do a couple special fun segments at the end of it as well. Ideally, the way that this would work out is we'll have level 2 members that'll hop on with me, and we'll have a kind of like small group conversation as well as a conversation with the chat of the things going on and what we might be able to work out with them. So, you know, we'll make it work. You know, the question may be, hey, there are millions of nerdy, there's not millions, but there are definitely dozens, if not hundreds, of nerdy news podcasts and streams and things out there. What makes yours different? The honest answer to that is that it's Checkpoints. And that's what makes us different, is that we're us. And that this is us. This is me. And we're here. And we're having fun. We're doing the best we can. But what'll really make it different is whenever we're able to have the conversations around it from the level 2 members. So that will start up next week, but I figured we could do just a slight little taste test of some of the things that you can expect from TWIG in the weeks to come, months to come, however long it lasts. And as long as it works, we'll keep going forever. We'll keep it in the perpetuation of the stream here on Mondays. We'll start out with just kind of a quick time of welcome. So this has already been discussed ad nauseum at this point. But the first question will be, what did you watch, play, or read this weekend? So for those of you that are on our Discord, you know that we ask every Friday the same question of the day. What are you going to watch, play, and read this upcoming weekend? And this will be after show. So we'll be talking about, all right, you said what you said. Did any of those come true? And how much of what you said actually happened. So I'm going to go back and look at my answer to question of the day last week. I said I was not going to be watching much. That's very true. Pretty much all I watched was The Last of Us. I said that I was going to be reading The Sea of Tranquility, and I am. Sea of Tranquility is pretty good so far. I'm just now starting it, so for those of you that are into the kind of like sci-fi fantasy scene, it's a fiction novel that won an award last year, and so I was like, sure, I'll give it a shot. It's pretty good. And I said that I would play Vampire Survivors because it's ruining me, and that's still true. I've played so much Vampire Survivors, and it is ruining me. It's ruining my life. It's ruining who I am, and I'm miserable when I'm playing it, and I'm miserable whenever I'm not playing it. Let's see how many hours I've logged into this game at this point. 35 hours and 10 minutes is what I logged, but I've also played some today, and like that is simply infuriating. The fact that I've played that much of this game is infuriating. I really thought I would play like 10 to 15 hours of this game at most, and I really anticipated playing like 6 to 8 hours. And I just can't stop. Can't stop, won't stop. I will say this, it belongs on the phone. I believe it belongs on the phone. I guess if you're in a different part of life, maybe you're able to play it on a console or maybe you're able to play it on your computer. But as for me and my 2 kids and my busy lifestyle, the only reason it's gotten as many hours of gameplay as it has is because of the fact that it's on the phone. It's so easy to play on the phone. It's so available. And so I've played way too much of it. For frame of reference, I played 91 hours of Cyberpunk 2077, and I've played 40 hours of Vampire Survivors. And those games, it should not be half as much time. It just shouldn't be. Just shouldn't be the case. So that's our first segment here. For those of you that are in the chat, let me know, what did you end up watching, playing, reading this weekend? Let's enter into conversation in that if you're around and able to drop in the chat what you have been playing or reading or watching. And then we'll get into some headlines, some exciting things that have gone on in the week of nerd. The first one, for those of you that missed it, I actually just saw this today. It just dropped today. So I'm going to show you guys. If you haven't heard, a bear was discovered on Mars in some of the dirt on the face of Mars. Heard about this from IGN today. Have you heard about this? A bear has been discovered on Mars. You can kind of see it. You can kind of see his little face. You can see this guy's, yeah. A bear has been discovered on Mars, sourced by Gizmodo. But I don't know if it's just me, but for me, I don't actually see a bear. What I'm actually seeing is this guy right here. So I don't know if you guys agree, but all that I can see is our beloved best friend, Checky. If you don't see Checky, Checky is our bot on our Discord that tells everybody that they're wrong all the time. And I can't help but see Checky. I think it looks just like, I want to honestly like let's see if I can rotate him a little bit. Looks like a Pomeranian, maybe so. See that? I see what they see with the like snoot, yeah? I see what they see with the snoot. Maybe even, maybe like Toby Fox's dogs. Yes. More reason to never go to Mars. Sorry, Elon, because Checky's there. Yeah, so a bear has been discovered on Mars. I think it looks just like Checky. I think the eyes do it for me and the happy face. Everybody hates Checky in the Discord, and so that's a main reason why I'm memeing on them with this. But I think that there's something to it. All right, next nerdy news segment is the Xbox Direct that aired last week. So I don't know if anybody watched. Let's see, we can drop a quick poll in the chat and see, did anybody watch the Xbox Direct last week? If you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's the Xbox Developer Direct. It dropped on YouTube last week. It featured a lot of exciting things in there. And I'm curious, I think that what everybody's doing and doing pretty well, PlayStation picked up on it, and Nintendo, of course, started it. But this direct model of, okay, we have E3, we have these major events where we're able to share things about games, but we're also able to utilize YouTube as this other model of things that are able to draw people's attentions and get news out during a particularly like solidified portion of time. And I think that's been a really good thing. And I think the fact that Xbox is finally into it, good. They should be. I'm glad they are. I'm happy to see that they're doing that they're actually making that happen. And I thought it went really, really well. Some of the big announcements were they announced and released Hi-Fi Rush, which was an unexpected, out of nowhere sort of game that has really kind of like taken the world by storm. I don't think people were expecting to like it as much as they did, but people are really loving it. It's definitely bumped its way up on my radar of games that I want to play. So it'll probably be on my list of like new games to add into the rotation for our Variety Tuesdays and that kind of thing. It looks like a good time. I'm glad that people are enjoying it. And it's from, who's it from? It's from somebody that does something not at all like that. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, it's from Tango Gameworks, who make The Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. And so that, I think that's what's really got everybody's goat, is that like people, these are from the team that make like very scary Evil Within 2, and the pretty spooky Ghostwire Tokyo. And then out of nowhere, they end up creating this Hi-Fi Rush. Now they are owned by ZeniMax, and so that's like probably got more to do with it than anything. They're kind of like overhead, umbrella maybe gave them this project, but it seems to be working for them pretty well. So that's a good sign. Let's look at the results of the poll. Did anybody watch the Xbox Direct? We had 2 people that did and 1 person that did not. So we've got 67% of people saying they did watch the Developer Direct. I hope that you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I thought it was pretty good. We also got the announcement for Redfall. So Hi-Fi Rush did not make a spooky game, but Redfall is still very much a spooky game. A vampire survival game hitting the scene out there. Let's see who's that from. Arcane. So Arcane Studios, the same studio behind Deathloop, behind Prey, Dishonored. So I'm sure it'll have that kind of feel to it. It probably will not be my kind of game, but an FPS typically does pretty well, and Arcane does them well. So there should be no problem with that one hitting the headlines and doing just fine. Minecraft Legends. I really haven't gotten into the accessory Minecraft games much. I don't know much about them, but I do like RTS. And so this is a new action strategy game developed by Mojang, who, they'll do great. They'll do great. They have so much money. It's one of those like it's too big to fail situations. Although I really haven't. I haven't gotten into all the accessory games. I just got into Minecraft, so it's hard for me to really, really learn more about the other stuff that's going on. Forza Motorsport did get a delay into Q3 or later, so we're still going to be waiting on that one. And then kind of a sleeper, at least to me, is that Elder Scrolls Online got a new expansion announced. Elder Scrolls Online Necrom will be dropping soon. Let me see if I can find the actual date for when that'll be dropping. But that's pretty interesting. I've never gotten into the Elder Scrolls, nor have I gotten into Elder Scrolls Online. But the fact that it's hitting the airwaves at some point is pretty cool. Pretty cool. June 5th, it looks like. So a lot of games coming out just from that one announcement. It was nice to see Xbox finally announce some games because I'm not going to lie, I love Xbox Game Pass, but that is like all that I love about Xbox. They really don't hype much else, you know? It's just kind of Game Pass. And Game Pass is excellent, but it's hard to remain like an Xbox stan beyond the fact that like I play most of my Xbox games on my computer anyway, or on my phone. So it's nice to see them at least getting people excited about something and getting people to talk about some of their stuff that they create. So now in some less fun news, Adult Swim has removed Justin Roiland. So for those of you that have been in the kind of sphere of Justin Roiland's controversy, has gotten in some big trouble for a domestic violence charge against him, as well as some pretty awful text messages and private messages coming out in the internet recently. And Adult Swim did finally make the call to axe him from Rick and Morty, which is big. However, they are going to continue the series going forward, which spawned a lot of very strange things of people. And by interviewing, I really mean putting themselves on TikTok doing a Rick and Morty impression so that they can replace Justin Roiland. You know, take it or leave it. I think that I haven't watched Rick and Morty since the second season. I don't know if it's still a good show or not. I think that it was a fun couple seasons. It was smart, but you know, I really was watching it for Dan Harmon because I like Dan Harmon. I like Community and I like the stuff that he's normally behind. Wouldn't say that I love him, but I like his stuff generally. But I just got over it. I got over it and got out of it. But I think it sounds like Adult Swim is making the decision that they have to move. I sure hope that everything is not as bad about Roiland as it actually appears to be, because I would always hope for the least amount of harm. At Checkpoint, we believe 3 general rules of John Wesley and everything that we do good, do no harm, and strive to grow. And I certainly hope that as little harm as possible is actually true in this. I hope that if there is any harm done, then I do hope that the justice is able to be done as adequately as possible. It sounds like there's already making the right decision of Adult Swim choosing to do as little harm as they can to their audience and to their propriety and to the people that they deliver to and the people that they employ. So I'm glad that the show is going to continue going forward and that a bunch of people didn't lose their jobs over one person's really bad mistake. That's good news, but it's tough. It's tough to know where we go from here. I'm sure that this will probably be the last thing we hear. I think that we will like for a while. I think we'll probably hear more like TMZ-esque tabloidal stuff, but this was really the last project. I know he's already, I want to say Justin Roiland wrote in a letter of resignation to Squanch Games, and Adult Swim, it sounds like, made him resign. So that situation, I think we've already seen all of the big news, and from now on, it's just going to be more really, really sad stuff. So I probably will try my best to avoid as much else as I can, because all the rest of it is just going to be dirty. It's just going to be the stuff that's going to be really messy news coming out. But I'm glad to see that at least we're having the best intentions of justice from Adult Swim, and it sounds like from Squanch Games as well, to try and do as little harm as possible with their propriety, with their creation, with their art that they create, and the jobs that they also create through that art. Okay. On to an equally challenging subject. The Hogwarts Legacy developer actually responded to some of the J.K. Rowling controversy. I'm not going to get too much into that controversy. Instead, I just want to say what Alan Tew, who is one of the co-developers of the game, had to say about that. So, the quote from Alan Tew on whether or not to play Hogwarts Legacy because of J.K. Rowling's opinions on it. I think, and this is a quote, "I think for us, there are challenges in every game we've ever worked on. This game has been no different. When we bumped into those challenges, we went back and refocused on the stuff that we really care about. We know our fans fell in love with the Wizarding World, and we believe they fell in love with it for the right reasons," he said. "We know that's a diverse audience. For us, it's making sure that the audience who always dreamed of having this game had the opportunity to feel welcomed back, that they have a home here, and that it's a good place to tell their story." So that is the full quote. And this is a tough thing to work through and a tough thing to consider. I would encourage anyone more curious about this or curious about, like, should I play the game, to go and do the hard work of research and information gathering. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to a call to action from a TikToker or a call to action from a post or an article or things like that. The best thing we can always do is to be as well informed as possible, and then to use that information that we receive to figure out how might we do, again, as little harm as possible. So that will be the way that we'll go forward with it. I will not be playing Hogwarts Legacy, not only because of the controversy, but certainly because I just don't have any interest in Harry Potter. I truly have not cared about that series in a long time. The flying looks neat, and I hope that, isn't it EA? I feel like it's EA. Who's working on it? Whoever's working on Hogwarts Legacy, I sure hope that they'll bring that into some other games that they work on. But yeah, I couldn't care less about Harry Potter anymore. It's Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers, that makes sense. Interactive, Avalanche Software. I don't even know Avalanche. Disney Infinity. And that's almost a mark against it. I didn't know it was the people that made Disney Infinity. Oof. All right. Well, we'll see. You know, maybe it'll go better than I think it will. But I do think that I was very glad. I was very glad to hear that the developer sort of answered the question and at least was willing to respond to it and didn't just decline to answer. So it means there's something they've considered and they're aware of. If you're really curious, I would encourage you to maybe even look up some of the stars of Harry Potter's responses to Rowling's controversy, because I think that's a helpful perspective to have. They offer up some valuable things. These are people that literally cannot remove themselves from this franchise. So it's an interesting perspective to hear. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. And I do want to read Perry's response there. This was back in reference to our Justin Roiland coverage there. To remember, people were hurt here. Our favorite shows aren't more important than fellow people's health and wellness. Absolutely. And employment. So that's why I kept including that. I do think it is important to note that as an act of doing as little harm as possible to keep people employed, it's hard to be unemployed, especially whenever you're a writer in Hollywood where you're already trying to make ends meet. I'm glad to hear that they're doing what they can to try and support the people that they do employ amidst controversy. I think that's a good thing. And I think that's a similarly good argument to make with Hogwarts. These are real people making a real thing. So yeah, consider that as an aspect of the nuance of the situation. Then weigh your own conscience about how do you think you're able to do as little harm in this scenario as possible. So, man, Disney Infinity. That's a bummer. That's a real bummer. All right, next up, we have Neil Druckmann on the new Uncharted series. So I'm gonna read the full quote because odds are you probably got a snippet of this that flew across your Twitter feed or across your news feed last week, if you're anything like me, that said Neil Druckmann said there will be no more Uncharted games ever made and that Uncharted is a dead series and we're never gonna do it again. And that's not actually what was said. So this was actually a conversation around The Last of Us. In particular, this was a question about The Last of Us 3. Somebody asked Naughty Dog developer Neil Druckmann, who also co-developed in Uncharted. So Uncharted and Last of Us are both kind of his babies. And basically was asked, what is the deal with Last of Us 3? Do you think that will ever be made? This was his actual response. He said, we've been pretty open that the next Last of Us game is going to be this multiplayer experience where you'll be able to enter into the world of The Last of Us with your friend and get to experience the tension and the brutality of that world and a brand new story and cast of characters that live in another city that we haven't seen yet in the world of The Last of Us. This is going to be another chapter in the universe of The Last of Us. Beyond that, I know there's a bunch of people wondering about The Last of Us Part 3, whether that'll be a thing or not. All I could say is, at Naughty Dog, we're very, very privileged that our publisher is Sony, which means that Sony funds our games, supports us, and we're owned by Sony. They've supported us every step of the way to follow our passions, meaning that just because something is successful, people think there's all this pressure that we have to make a sequel. Here we go. Here comes the Uncharted part. That's not the case. For us, Uncharted was insanely successful. Uncharted 4 was one of our best-selling games. We're able to put our final brushstroke on that story and say that we're done. We're moving on. Okay. He didn't really say that there's no more Uncharted, just kind of said that we were able to make Uncharted 4 the final brushstroke. So could they make more? Sure. But it sounds like the story that they were telling is probably pretty done. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. It could just be a good talking point and a good example of how The Last of Us Part 2 could be the end of the story. For those of you that played it, it would seem like Ellie's story can probably go on from there, but maybe not. Maybe not. Who knows what they'll do? But I think that it was a bit overblown as far as this, like, it's absolutely never going to happen. No more Uncharted games. Uncharted is gone forever. I don't think that is true. Lunch break is over now. Have a great rest of your stream. See you, Sonny. Thanks for hopping in. Appreciate you being here. And thanks for the lurk, Perry, as well. And Perry also noted, especially with all layoffs in tech. So there you go. That's the real story about what Neil Druckmann said about Uncharted. So you see there's a little bit more to it than just we're not making an Uncharted game. First off, it wasn't even about Uncharted in the first place, right? It was about Last of Us Part 3 and whether that will happen. And then just kind of noting that with the funding that they receive from Sony, that they're able to have support and no pressure for a sequel. So if they say the story's done, then the story's done. And they don't feel pressured to make an Uncharted 5 unless they decide they have a story to tell there. Okay, in our final headlining item here, Netflix supposedly has never canceled a successful show. This is another thing that went everywhere across my newsfeed. So I went back to the actual source of what this was talking about and what in the world was going on here. And apparently the new co-CEOs of Netflix, Greg Peters and Ted Sarandos, were in an interview talking about some of their shows and their algorithm and their process behind how they create Netflix's stuff. Sarandos said this quote, and this is what everybody's drawing on. Said, "We've never canceled a successful show. A lot of these shows were well-intended, but talk to a very small audience on a very big budget. The key to it is you have to be able to talk to a small audience on a small budget and a large audience at a large budget. If you do that well, you can do that forever." It seems pretty obvious here. What Sarandos is saying is that money makes the difference. And so if you have the budget to do the thing, you can do the thing. But what happens whenever a show is canceled is that they have a show that's marketed to a small audience with too large of a budget. So if the audience and the budget don't line up, they're going to cancel a show. I think that gets back to probably some of the best superhero shows out there in the Arrowverse. The Arrowverse shows don't always look good, do they? Because they can't. Because their budget is not very high. And their budget is not very high because the Arrowverse is for a very niche audience. Netflix is figuring out what the CW figured out years ago, just a little bit behind. What I think Netflix does pretty well is probably buying up other media. Now, yes, they can create good media, but I think where they're finding issues is that the budget that works for the small audiences is probably not producing it. It's probably buying it out. So hosting The Flash or something like that on Netflix is going to be the right budget for the right audience. Whereas actually making it happen is not going to work. The Xbox strat. Yeah, exactly. So they need Netflix Game Pass. We'll see if it happens. But it is pretty interesting to see. I was intrigued to see Alice in Borderland got a season 2. I think that's exactly the case in point of the fact that that's a small audience, but it's also a cheap show. Whereas the more demanding animated series might be a bit too much because they have too big of a staff behind the anime. But yeah, very interesting stuff. I'm curious about it. I think it was, he is probably in a PR meeting as we speak where they were like, "Why did you say successful? Why did you say successful? Do you know how many people you've made mad because you used the word successful?" And that's his problem. He shouldn't have said that it was a successful show issue. It's not about success unless you define success as money meeting the audience. And so it's very clear that that's what Sarandos thinks, is that success means money meeting audience, but he shouldn't have said that. Because for a lot of us out there, that is not what success means. Success means that they made something that we loved and that meant something to us. That's successful. Money talks, that's Sarandos' issue, is that he's pointed out that reality as truth, and that may have been #too real for some people out there. Okay, so those are our headliners for today. Those are our headlining themes and our topics that we wanted to talk about. So if you have any thoughts about any of those, be sure to let us know your thoughts. This will actually be edited, cut down into a video, and posted tomorrow over on our YouTube channel. So that'll be another way that we'll get this content out there. So if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to drop a comment down below on any of your thoughts about any of these shows. At this point, we will now actually talk about things that are submitted to the Discord, but we don't have that because how could we? Because this is the first one that we've ever done. So instead, I'm just gonna tell you guys how to submit to our Discord. So you can go to bit.ly/deartwig, DEARTWIG, and you can submit your links there as well as a reason of why you want to submit them. I will work on adding in a command here on Twitch, make that happen as well. Let me make sure that works. It does, yay! bit.ly/deartwig, or you can go to our Discord, and whenever you go to our Discord, you can go up to Twitch stream, which has a segment on the side. Down at the bottom is Twig, and I will have pinned a link that you can actually click to submit your nerdy news there. Any nerdy news that we get there, I will be going over and reading through and adding it into this segment of the show. So if there's something that's important to you, but maybe we might miss it, let us know. We'll make sure to cover it during this segment. So there you go. Hopefully this segment will be much longer in the next episode if we do it, but this should be a fun thing for us to add into the show. Now, quick little segment here. We're going to do something every single time, every single week, called At This Point in History. I feel like we need something more epic. Let's do At This Week in History. And this is what was released today in history. So January 30th, what has been released in history on this day? These are just a couple that I found that are kind of fun. So some games that were released on January 30th. January 30th, 2015, the very first episode, because that's how they used to release them, of Life is Strange was released. So on January 30th, episode 1, I think it was called Chrysalis. So episode 1 of Life is Strange dropped in 2015. The year before that, 2014, this was not the first year of this game, but it was the first year that this game was on Android. And on this day in 2014, Flappy Bird hit the Android market. Can you believe it? 1991 in Japan on the NES, Paperboy hit the screens. So Paperboy, the classic game where you're riding your bicycle down a straight lane and throwing your papers out to the proper houses, hit the screens. And 1985 in Japan on the NES again was Ice Climbers. So the original Ice Climbers hit the NES in 1985 in Japan. Movies that hit the screen on January 30th. Back in 2009 with the one and only Liam Neeson, the movie Taken. I have a particular set of skills, hit the screen. And then back in 1991, a very, very different film, Silence of the Lambs, actually hit the screen. So there you go. January 30th has been a big time. And then one just for fun. So this is not necessarily one that I'll try to do every single week because it'd be tough. It'd be real tough to figure all of it out. We probably won't do radio shows very often because I don't have the time to go back and see what radio shows premiered on January 30th. But it turns out that one particularly huge radio show did air on January 30th of 1933. For the very first time, 90 years ago, was the first episode of The Lone Ranger on ABC Radio. How crazy is that? The Lone Ranger, January 30th, 1933, The Lone Ranger. Not The Shadow. Though I will have to see. I'll have to see when, maybe I will do more radio shows. No, there's no way. That would be truly impossible. But that has been your, let's see, that has been your... At this point in history. Let me know what you guys think, if you think that's a fun thing to do, a fun little segment to have in here. I think it's interesting. I like history. Final segment of the day is going to be upcoming releases for the week. So rather than just focusing on this day, we're going to focus on the week ahead and what might be hitting on your particular gaming systems or on your silver screen or TV screen in the coming week. Tomorrow, we have Age of Empires 2, apparently, the definitive edition. So again, if you want to play Age of Empires 2, again, you can do that. A game that I'm pretty curious about that I'm probably going to add to my log because it's an indie game is going to be Season, A Letter to the Future, hitting PS5 and PC tomorrow. Super Fuse. I haven't even heard of this. Let me see what this is. I don't even know what that is. Hang on. Super Fuse. Ooh. Hack and slash ARPG. Yeah, I will not be playing a minute of that. But that is hitting PC tomorrow. Valiant Hearts Coming Home Mobile hits tomorrow. That's exciting. Valiant Hearts is a pretty good series. Emotional tearjerk. Coming Home officially drops tomorrow. So Valiant Hearts 2 will be hitting the mobile scene tomorrow. Second, Deliver Us Mars. Deliver Us Mars. Let's see what that is. A survival game. Oh wow, that looks really cool. Made in Unreal. It's by Koken Interactive. Deliver Us the Moon. So if you played Deliver Us the Moon back in 2018, looks like they're making a new game called Deliver Us Mars. That'll be dropping on February. What is this? Oh my goodness. All right, the Fashion Police Squad. What could this even be? What is this? It's a retro FPS where you fight against fashion crime using attire-enhancing weaponry. All right, it actually came out last year, so I guess it's hitting something different. It looks like it's hitting consoles, so that's hilarious. This has been a game that's actually been out there, but now it's hitting officially, or maybe it's officially releasing. Fashion Police Squad is coming out. The Pathless is also coming out on February 2nd. Let's see what that is. The Pathless is an action-adventure video game by Giant Squid and by Annapurna. Now, you guys know I love me some Annapurna, so... Oh, now this also came out in 2020, so I wonder if it's just hitting consoles. There's no telling. So that's the thing with all these games is that they always tell me that they're coming out, but they might actually be coming out just on different consoles. Spellforce Conquest of EO. I don't even know what that is either. Spellforce Conquest of EO. Lets you dive into a rich world filled to the brim with magic and adventure okay, so it's from the Spellforce series from THQ Nordic. So if you play Spellforce, there's a new something coming to Spellforce. Probably a DLC on the 3rd. There you go. There is your week of gaming. Some notable movies. I couldn't find any TV shows that were just starting to air this week, and I'm not going to go through every show that's dropping an episode. But some movies that are hitting the screen this week is Pamela, A Love Story, will be airing officially on Netflix tomorrow. So if you care to know the story of Pamela, I believe Pamela Anderson, is it not? Let me make sure before I talk out of nowhere. Yes. About Pam and Tommy. So there you go. That'll be airing tomorrow. And then on February 3rd, this is a movie that has been interesting enough just because I'm curious about Dave Bautista and his life. But Knock at the Cabin will be airing on February 3rd. So those of you that have seen the trailer for that, it looks pretty interesting. Let's see if there's any news about what that movie's even about. Because I couldn't figure out what it was about from actually watching it. But yes, Dave Bautista, Rupert Grint, and it's M. Night. So M. Night's latest movie. I always watch the M. Night movies. I'm not generally very happy with them, but I watch them because I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. And so if you want more M. Night in your life, it sounds Dave Bautista, M. Night Shyamalan, Knock at the Cabin, hitting your airwaves February 3rd. There you go. That has been The Week in Geek. I hope that you guys enjoyed this little segment and this show. Ideally, in the future, we will have level 2 members here on chatting about it as well. We'll have even more conversation around the things that are happening. Again, keep in mind that you can submit news to us. So bit.ly/DearTwig. Let us know what news we should be covering, what things we should be talking about. We would love to cover those things there. And you can also do that over in our Discord. So if you're watching on YouTube now, everybody say hi, YouTube. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked this kind of content, if you want this nerdy news segment to continue going forward, do us a favor. If you made it this far in the video, you probably liked it. Let us know you liked it by clicking that like button down below, giving that thumbs up. Subscribe if you're not already, and definitely leave a comment down below on any of the news that you heard today that you want to weigh in on. If you like this kind of thing, I hope you do. I'm excited for it. I'm having fun putting it together and look forward to hopefully making even more engaging content in the future. We're always trying new things at Checkpoint, and this is another instance of that. So as we wrap this one up, I want to end this with our 3 things that we believe are true about every single one of you out there, regardless of whether or not you enjoyed this nerdy news segment, did not enjoy it, or maybe if you believe in God, don't believe in God, go to church, don't go to church, any of those things, we still believe these 3 things matter. We believe, number 1, God loves you, like really, really loves you. Number 2, we love you. We want community with you. That's what we're doing here at Checkpoint, whether it be here on our Twitch where this originally aired, or on YouTube where you're watching it now, or on Discord where the community is gathered all the time. And number 3, really that you, yes, you matter. You are a person of sacred worth. The world is a better place. Why? Because you are in it. Folks, with that, until the next time I see you, whether it be on some of the other videos on this channel, or whether it be right here, same time, same place, for another nerdy news segment next Tuesday, I look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye!